Hey, it's Sam, and today I'm talking about July 2021. We're going to have a lot of shifts. We have a Venus-Mars conjunction. That's going to be a big part of the first half of July. Then the Sun will move into Cancer as well. There's a lot of that Cancerian emotions, but those planets are going to be opposite Saturn in Capricorn. Then planets move into Leo. They'll be opposite Jupiter. We have Saturn and Jupiter retrograde. So I'm going to unpack all of this today. So stick around and watch this. Okay, so I'm here talking about July 2021, and it's some very interesting shifts will be happening. I do want to let people know also that I have put together a full presentation on the big shifts that are going to be happening through the spring and summer of 2021, and in fact into the fall. I should update this because especially these Saturn retrograde, Jupiter retrograde cycles, this Mercury cycle back and forth in Taurus and Gemini. And, you know, as you see, that goes until July 25th. So a big part of this forecast as well, we'll be talking about the influence of having Mercury in Gemini, which is good for communication. Also, again, we're finishing up these eclipse cycles. But again, the effects of the eclipse go on long after the actual moment. In fact, for the couple months between now and through the summer, we're going to be strongly influenced by this Taurus-Scorpio eclipse cycle. So you can go to that link I just put in the comment field and just click yes, reserve my seat now. You can select the date and time, either watch the instant replay and then just register, and you can get that. It's about an hour and a half. So it's a long class. And I do it that way because, you know, spending an hour and a half or so here on YouTube isn't always the best way to do it because people aren't really paying that much attention. So focus your energy and focus your mind on really understanding what's going on. And I also wind up talking about the all 12 signs, which would include your sign as well, and the signs of Capricorn and Aquarius. So if you're, for instance, if you're a Libra person, that's going to be your fourth and fifth houses are going to be really magnified. If you're a Scorpio, it's going to be third and fourth houses. So I talk about how it's going to really influence each of the 12 signs also. So like I said, it's very comprehensive and takes time to unpack. So that's the best format for this kind of thing. So it's all free. Now, again, so what we're doing today is also this, you know, the next couple weeks here, we have this, you know, a few transits. I'm pulling up the chart here 1 second. Okay, so we have it now. And you can see where we're at right now. I have this set on the 21st. Let me go back. Right now we're on June 23rd. So we're right here. Okay, so again, we have Saturn and Jupiter both retrograde here on June 23rd. Venus and Mars are somewhat close. They're both in Cancer, so Venus has now gone into Cancer. It's going to approach Mars. Mercury is now direct. He was retrograde. He's moving forward now. He's still kind of stationary, direct. You see he's 22. He'll be 2206 tomorrow. This is still stationary, direct, 2218. So he's really not moving very much. Mercury is kind of stationary. Again, that's what it means. When he's stationary, he's not moving. So he doesn't really get moving until almost the end of the month. So you see by June 29th, he's still barely moved 2 degrees. So again, that's in a week. And Mercury often goes 2 degrees in a day. So really not until July does he start really moving. And he quickly moves into Gemini by the time we get into July, right? And then by the end of July, he's through. So that's how fast Mercury moves. But so we start off with Mercury stationary in Taurus. He'll then go into Gemini. as I say, Jupiter and Saturn are both retrograde. That's for the whole month. That's until October. So again, this is also another reason to get that forecast that I was talking about, that free forecast, to really understand what these things mean, right? It's not just, oh, today this happened. No, we're being governed by astrological influences for months at a time, right? So it's really good to sort of chunk out what are the real prevailing energies for a few months or what have you. They're shown by these retrograde cycles, Mars and the sun moves into signs. And so these are the real influences that are happening. And again, of course, in my 2021 forecast, I also talked about these sort of 10 most important shifts throughout the whole year. So again, we're seeing that right now, that this Saturn-Jupiter retrograde is going to be going the whole time. That shift happened in June. So this is why my June 2021 forecast, a lot of it focused on the retrograde cycles, especially of Jupiter and Saturn, because they both happened. So that was a big shift from May. What happens when they go retrograde? Well, things tend to stop, slow down. We become more reflective, more introspective. Have you noticed that? Are you noticing that now, where you're really reflecting a lot more on things, or you're really sort of concentrating? Maybe questioning your direction in certain areas, in certain ways, and deepening and concentrating your efforts in other ways. So what's really important when these planets go retrograde, again, Jupiter retrograde is reflecting on what inspires us. Are the things that you thought were going to inspire you still inspiring? Let's say even from a few months ago when Jupiter went into Aquarius, right? So when he turns retrograde, we start to reflect on those things. And again, often this is a time when we're looking for good teachings, new teachings, new teachers, reflecting and deepening on the teachings that we already have, if they're authentic. Again, it's often a good time for students. It's often good for me and my courses as well, because people who are really interested in astrology, for example, when Jupiter goes retrograde, and Saturn as well, it's a time where people really want to concentrate and they really want to deepen their commitment. Again, deepen our commitment is a big Saturn theme, internally especially, because study is something that's internal. For example, we're gathering, we're absorbing, we're taking things in. So with both Jupiter and Saturn retrograde right now and through October, again, it's a great time not only to deepen your commitment, which is Saturn, but to deepen your teachings, which is Jupiter. So if you bring those two things together, deepen your commitment to your teachings, as long as they're authentic. Because what can happen when you're not tuned into authentic teachings and authentic commitments, when the planets go retrograde, they tend to break. There tend to be pressure. There tends to be confusion. There's disillusion with the things you were believing in. That's what makes you find new teachings. So again, it's too simplistic to say that Jupiter retrograde or Saturn retrograde it's bad because, oh yeah, suddenly I was so confused. Yeah, you were confused because you were doing things that were dumb, or not. You weren't following your teachings, or the teachings weren't really worth following. You were believing in some worn out paradigm about, capitalism, or I don't know, whatever it might be. Again, I'm not saying dumb to be so, to be so nasty, but just as an economy of words, this is what we do. We waste time and do things that are dumb. And when retrograde, we stop doing it often because we start to feel the consequences of that. And we want to make another choice. So we don't make better choices until the choices we had been making fall apart. And again, with Jupiter, it's about our quest for meaning all the time. There was a book called Man's Quest for Meaning, right? Why do we have a quest for meaning? Animals don't do that. Their meaning is built in. Why do we have it? Because we're aspiring to something more. We're in between God and dog, right? Is human. Between the animal and the God is the human. We can get pulled down by the animal, and we're trying to get elevated and pulled up by the God in us. We're in between. I wrote a song. It's coming to my head, so I got to say it. I wrote a song years ago about this. It said, "From womb to tomb, we're in between, dancing in this big machine. From God to dog, we're in between, dancing in this big machine." You tell him, Sam. No, that was a song I wrote years ago. But it's true, we're in between. So the Jupiter part is the part that's always aspiring toward the god, trying to not get pulled down by the dog. And so again, with both of them retrograde, it's a lot of introspection and feeling the corrupt teachings, the teachings that aren't so inspiring after all. So I'm talking about this a lot because I'll just go through the month. I'll just hit this on the week, and you'll watch how these planets are going to start opposing. Well, first of all, when we start, we have this opposition of Saturn, direct opposition of Saturn and Mars. And then Venus also is close. So Venus and Mars are close by July 1st. Venus and Mars are a lot closer, which I'll talk about in a second. But again, I'm talking about more overarching themes. You notice the way I'm doing this is I'm starting with larger themes first. I started with the Mercury retrograde cycle. Then I'm getting into Jupiter, Saturn, because they're more long-term. And what's going to be affecting that Jupiter, Saturn are these oppositions. So this is why even in the name of this forecast, for July, the theme is about these oppositions, right? These breakups and blow-ups and makeups, and because that's what oppositions do. They're like things pulling, back and forth here, like that, right? Venus and Saturn pulling on each other. So this Capricorn Cancer axis is getting pulled. And then they're going to move into Leo, and then the Leo Aquarius axis gets pulled. So again, if I run it forward a few weeks, again, this is July 8th. You see they're still lining up opposite, but then we start getting into, that's the 14th. Then again, by the middle end, now Mars and Venus are in Aquarius and Leo opposing Jupiter and Aquarius. The sun is opposing Saturn. So again, you see these oppositions lining up, and these planets are very bright now. One thing that you'll notice astronomically is Jupiter and Saturn will get very bright in the sky, because when they're exactly opposite the Earth, that's when they're brightest, because that's when they're closest to the Earth. So we'll see that, again, this is July 29th. By July 29th, the sun is the sun is halfway through. But again, these Saturn is very bright, as bright as he gets. And then Jupiter's also getting brighter. Jupiter will look much brighter in the sky because he's much bigger than Saturn and he's closer. So, we'll start to see a nice big bright Jupiter in the sky around sunset. Or I'm sorry, sunrise, excuse me. No, sunset. What am I talking about? He'll start to rise. Is it? God, see, I'm all backward now. See, he's opposite. So it would be sunset. He'll start to rise. So yeah, he'll be bright in the sky. See, I talk about this binary dyslexia I have. Like if it's a choice between one or two, I'll usually get it wrong. I'll have to sit down and really think about it. So anyway, but Jupiter and Saturn will be very bright in the sky. They're as far away from the sun as possible. So it will be opposite. So anyway, but as you see this sort of architecture sort of laying out, and you can see by the end of July, Mercury is already almost 10 degrees of Cancer. See how fast he goes. He's only about 20 degrees, and in a month, he goes all the way through Gemini. He's barely moving at the beginning, and then by the end, he's barely moving now on June 23rd. By July 29th, he's almost 10 degrees. So you see how fast Mercury moves once he starts moving. If you go back one day, yeah. Oh, that was a week. Let me go back a day. 25, 27, 29. See, by the middle of July, he's moving 2 degrees a day. So that's why you can see where he is now. The fact that he's only covering 2 degrees in about a week, or barely 1 degree in a week, shows when he's stationary, he's practically not moving at all. So that means that the Mercury energy in our mind right now is very concentrated, which is quite good. And this is why I said in that 2021 forecast, summer, spring, summer into the fall forecast, that from April until July, we're really experiencing this very powerful Mercury shift. And it definitely is really powerful, the Mercury shift. One second. Here it is. It really is powerful, the Mercury shift. Let me just share this again. Yeah. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. One second. And so it's the one of the reasons is because, as you see, Mercury has been in Taurus or Gemini from April 30th until July 25th. Now, the reason that's important, I'll put the link again in the comments. So again, you can register for this free, it's like an hour and a half exposition on this, where I talk about all of these placements. But this one is really powerful because Mercury is really strong in these signs. Taurus and Gemini, he went there at the end of April, and he's going to be in Gemini until July 25th. So what does this mean? Well, again, Taurus and Gemini are two very important signs for really taking our material life and our values and our relationship and our speech and the people in our world and the things around us, and making sure that they're in alignment with our interests and with our with our evolving mind and friends and all the things that we're doing. Taurus is literally like the family, our values, and Gemini is our interests and trying to figure things out and understand things and explain things and communicate. You might not, even realize this, but so much of your life revolves around this. This is very much a big part of our day-to-day life. Aries, the first sign, is kind of like where we're born. Like we wake up every day and we're kind of like, okay, I'm this individual Aries person kind of going around, like me as the individual. But then very quickly after you, the individual, you have Taurus, which is like the food you eat, the routines you have, the stuff, your values, those embedded things in your life, literally like your home and your family and your clothes and your teeth and stuff that's like very, very, very close to you. And then Gemini is the next kind of circle, which is your interests, how you engage with those things, how you expand those things. Again, your circle of friends, not necessarily the closest ones, but your interests and the friends that you bounce ideas off of, your sense of enjoyment, your sense of understanding the world. And that voice in your head, that explanation about who you are and what you're doing and what it all means, a lot of that is Gemini energy. And so when Mercury is the planet that's really kind of navigating all of that. And again, the recent Mercury retrograde is one second. The recent Mercury retrograde is has been a time for us to really get that clear in our head as well, and to work on that voice in our head and get it to be correct and get that story straight. What's really happening in our life? Who am I? What am I doing? What is my real nature? And am I authentically understanding myself? Am I interpreting the world correctly? Am I interpreting my life correctly? All of that stuff. That's Mercury. So when Mercury is so powerful, especially where he's really bridging your values of Taurus and making sure that your values, the people around you, what's important to you, again, that includes things like your habits, routines, diet, exercise, and the people around you and your interests and the story of all of that. Again, how much of your life revolves around literally like what you do when you wake up, what you're doing after that, what you're interested in. I mean, you sitting here watching this video is very much Gemini, type energy. You questioning existence, you being curious about what's going on, you interpreting your life through the information that you hear. So again, the fact that Mercury is going to be was in these two signs for this long, and it included a retrograde cycle. It also included an eclipse. That's why this has been such a pivotal several months. And it's not over. Again, Mercury has mainly been in Taurus, where it's not the main sign that's powerful. The main reason it's so powerful is because he goes into Gemini. He poked his head in Gemini, and in June. Then he went back. Now he's going to go into Gemini. Again, you see on let's just run this day to day now. So this is July 1st. He's still at the end of Taurus, but he's in Mrigashira Nakshatra. Then again, he finishes up. He's not moving very fast. July 5th, July 6th, July 7th, he goes into Gemini, and then he's there in Gemini through until the 29th. So see a big shift happening July 7th, where and 8th, 9th, 10th, where you'll start to get some real intelligent, downloads and some real clarity around what you're thinking, what the story of your life is. Maybe it's still a little clunky because of the eclipses and this big transition in what your life is all about right now. I don't know if you're noticing it. I certainly have been just kind of like, where am I going? What am I doing? Who am I again? What's this world again? And that Mercury, again, it's been eclipsed. It's been going back and forth in retrograde, kind of rewriting our story, right? So it'll start to get a lot more clear after July 7th, when he goes into Gemini and sets up in Gemini for, until the end of July, right? And so the other thing that's also big is, during this time, this is July 10th. So you see, we already have this opposition set up, this Venus-Mars opposition, Venus-Mars in Cancer, which is about, again, this is that kind of, Mars is in a debilitated sign where we're quite emotional, maybe feeling not so disciplined, and Venus is also there, which is adding even further to the feeling of not being so disciplined, because Venus wants to enjoy things. Venus wants to enjoy life, wants to be happy, and Mars, again, wants to be strong and tough and individualized. So again, one of the things this certainly can be good for making peace in relationships, because both Venus and Mars in the sign of Cancer wants that sort of peaceful connection. But again, there can be the feeling with Mars that we're not being strong enough, that we're not disciplined enough, and there could definitely be some frustrations boiling over. This is the issue when Mars is debilitated, is that we feel a lack of discipline for sure. But again, when he goes through that sign, it's also a time to, especially by transit, again, because it's not a natal chart, it's a transit chart, to really notice what's going to be possible and how we're going to be thinking. So it's a time to really introspect about our battles and to try to also connect them to the heart a little bit, and be more sensitive. So again, Venus going through Cancer at the time as well is going to bring some tension and some stress there. But so we have to watch that. But overall, it can show in personal relationships, especially where there's been some dissent, maybe even in your family, in situations where people have fought hard to establish their boundaries and all that stuff, which is the Mars area of life, and really stuck to their guns. This is not so much about sticking to our guns. It's about kind of laying them down a little bit. And so, especially because we have a powerful Saturn here aspecting. And again, this is always important, is we have a very strong Saturn because he's in his own sign of Capricorn. And he's really, holding that line, aspecting Mars, which is not really wanting to fight, and Venus, which is wanting to make peace. Again, there's always the frustration built in anytime Mars, Venus are joined, and it can be quite emotional in Cancer. But the real lesson and the real desire, rather than fight it, go with it. But again, the power in it is knowing that, we don't have to totally lose our way in it. We don't have to lose our values and whatnot, which is the real danger of Mars in Cancer, particularly in the natal chart. Again, you have to look at everything differently. If this is a natal chart and Mars is debilitated, it becomes much more of a theme about taking our battles so personally and all of that. When you're looking at a transit chart, that theme is still there, but it's more transient because Mars was just in Gemini. He's going to go in Leo. So rather than being triggered so much by the moment, we can say, okay, this is why I'm feeling more surrendered and more relaxed with, letting my boundaries, not holding those strong boundaries. People with a powerful Mars, like I'll say myself, I have Mars in Leo. So that part of that sort of just laying down the weapons at times and just kind of letting things go and being more connected emotionally to things and not feeling like I always have to defend or whatever it might be if something is right. It's a good thing to just kind of let it happen. Don't worry, Mars is coming. He's 25, in the next week, he'll be in Leo ready to defend again. So again, reading transits is different than reading a natal chart or reading a dasha or whatnot. Everything is different. You can't put everything in the same bucket. So this is a lot of what's going to be happening in July. That's why I'm talking about it a lot, because Mars is in Cancer pretty much the whole time. Or no, not the whole time. At least until the middle of the month, right? And then he goes into Leo. So in the middle of the month, we'll just run the time here. 7, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So by the 20th, now he goes into Leo. So he's ready to get back and fight. And by the way, this is often a time when Mars goes into Leo. Watch that backlash. This is something to really look at. And again, I've noticed, because I've been watching transits for 20 years. And you can't just say Mars and Leo, blah, 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 as if it's just, one thing. You have to track where it's been, okay? So, again, when we get to July 20th, July 21st, as he gets set up the end of July, realize Mars, the last time Mars was feeling really powerful was when he was in Aries. That was earlier in the year. Then he goes into Taurus, and he was eclipsed, where Mars is not very powerful. He's subdued. Then he goes into Gemini, where it's like a bit frustrated and irritated over details, and they kind of, diverted when Mars is in Gemini. It's not clear, disciplined, strong. Then he goes into Cancer, where he's debilitated and emotional. By the time Mars gets to Leo, he's like is like the general is now on the throne. The general is now the king. That's often the way it feels. Mars is the general, and he's now on the throne. He's the king. The general is now the king, and he's ready to he could be ready to lay waste to the parts of the kingdom that, you thought I was weak? You thought I was weak and just some homebody trying to cook meals for everybody? I was in Taurus then. Now I'm king. You thought I was just some kind of intellectual blah, 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 blah? Okay. No, I was just in Gemini at that time. I'm back. You thought I was just some emotional peace lover, peace giver wanting to compromise. Okay, that was a month ago. Now I'm back. I'm back, baby. And I got my rocket launcher ready to set everything back in order. And that's Mars nature. So you have to track transits and not forget these things. Again, by the way, the natal chart is similar, but not as much the same, because it's more of a fixed quality. It's a Shtira fixed indicator. It's not a chara. It's not a movable indicator, right? But when you're doing transits, you have to look at them this way. In this section of the zodiac, this section here, especially from like here to here, Mars is much more powerful. Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn. This is where Mars is really like bang. Not so great in Aquarius, but then Pisces, Aries, again, also much better. Then he hits here, this part of the zodiac, and he's like, ugh. You should know this about all the planets. So especially by the time he hits Leo, I've tracked this for years. Believe me, I got to watch it because it's also my Mars return. So I've been like, But again, one thing that happens is your natal placement is an inherent power that no matter where the planet's going in the sky, it's subordinate to your own nature. Like if somebody was born, with Mars in Scorpio or Mars in Capricorn, that's always going to be their relationship to it. But then when it gets weak over here, or whatever, we can feel the discipline lack. We can feel what feels like a lack of energy. So he comes back into Leo or whatever. It's like, okay. So that's a truism for all the planets. So you want to track this situation. July 20th, Mars goes into Leo after really not being that strong and powerful since like February or something. And being being in these signs where he was with Rahu and all that. So notice that. And notice how the big shift between Mars and Venus in Cancer and then Mars and Venus in Leo. Again, this is why I said at the subtitle of the video is about this, about this fighting and making up and breaking up and all that stuff. Again, you can see this big shift. Here's the 16th. Mars and Venus are in Cancer. 17th, Venus goes into Leo. And then by the 20th, Mars and Venus are both in Leo. They're still not very far away from each other. They're still only a few degrees away. So again, Mars and Venus are tracking pretty much the whole month, but they're going from Cancer to Leo, which is a big shift. And especially after the 20th, you might feel a big shift. Oh, that lovey-dovey. Okay, let's love each other for a big part of the Cancer part. Let's make this agreement. Okay, yes, we love each other. We want to be together. A week later, it might be like, what did we do? So be careful who you're making up with. They're still the same person. And this is the thing to know about transits, right? They are transient. And somebody said Gandanta point. Yes, Gandanta point. Yes, Gandanta point. That's also there. So during the transitions, this is where we see this is why I'm talking about this point, if you want to, make it intentional, from the 15th through like into the 20th, 21st, 22nd, as they're moving through the Gandanta point, which is the end of Cancer and into Leo, then that's where we can really start to see some explosive blow up in your personal life. Again, of course, all this stuff in the external world stuff as well. We could see the sort of volatility happening here. Mars has been quite subdued. I saw a lot of astrologers who predicted, and again, most of it is driven by their fanatical political bias. I'm just going to flat out say it, that, June, watch out for June. Now, again, we have had at least in the U.S., there's been a real spate of gun violence, for sure. But of course, it's been the whole idea of social violence, upheaval. You watch, it's going to blow everything up. The whole culture is going to fall apart because the whatever is going to come back in civil war and all this stuff. Expecting there to be this huge thing in June because of Saturn-Mars, right? Saturn-Mars aspect and things like that, which really hasn't happened. It's been pretty subdued culturally in much of the world, honestly, compared to the way things had been. And that's because Mars has been in the debilitated sign. Now, again, as we get into July, Mars is still going to be debilitated. He's going to be in the exact opposition here, though. But again, I'm not. what happens is Saturn, because he's much more powerful in Capricorn, has much more control over the potential volatility here. But there's definitely explosive potential in the world and things like that. So again, there's a big shift as we're just going through this again. As I've just done it, you see the moon joins. This is the 11th. Again, you also see that the sun is up here. Mercury is established in Gemini at that time. Then again, the sun is there. This is the 11th, 12th, 13, 14. And then the sun goes, boom, 15. Oh, there it is. So on the 16th, again, you see the sun goes into Cancer and Venus is about to leave. Venus is Gandanta, boom. So you start to see the transitions around the middle of the month. So again, to like the 15th, there's a strong emphasis on the Gemini energy and until the 15th. I'm sorry. Let me take a drink. So a strong emphasis on the Gemini energy until the 15th. Both Sun and Venus are there. Then Mercury, stays there until the end. But of course, the sun then moves into Cancer. So whenever the sun changes signs, we have that shift in focus. So the shift in focus from the Gemini principle to the Cancer principle, again, happens in the middle of the calendar month, as it always does. So we'll simultaneously start to see that shift with the sun in Cancer, but then these other planets moving into Leo. So a few things here, and they're also aspected by Jupiter. And now you're seeing this opposition with Jupiter, which, again, this influence and opposition is also very much going to kind of fire us up around a lot of righteousness and all kinds of stuff like that. So this is always what happens with Leo and Venus in Leo, especially. There can be a feeling of disappointment with the level of affection or power that we have. Mars there can make it more amplified again. And Jupiter is also kind of fueling it with a lot of, what's the big purpose? What's the point of this? What's the hope that we're all fighting for? So again, it affects personal relationships that way. Jupiter tends to influence a relationship and says, well, what's the point of this? And if we don't have a point, why are we doing it? Because just trying to get along with each other is not necessarily the meaning or the point of my life. Do we have kids? Is that why we're doing this? Is that why we're trying to work together? What's the point? Do we share a guru? Do we share a common vision? If not, why are we trying to do this? That's what Jupiter does in relationships anyway. Children is the best thing. Oh, we have a kid we're raising together. Okay, that'll keep us together. That'll make it seem worth it. If that's not there, we've already raised kids or we're not doing that, then do we have the same philosophies? Do we believe the same things? Do I have to listen to your crazy political views? If so, okay, do we still have a spiritual connection? Why are we doing this? So again, these will be big themes, especially when they shift into Leo, especially with Venus as a relationship planet. We might start to revisit all those philosophical differences we have with people. And especially because now Saturn is getting, the sun is getting aspected by Saturn as well. That Cancer energy, which felt very invigorated by Mars, Venus, is now less because, the sun is there, which is bringing a focus on it. But again, Saturn is now putting the aspect on it again. And these other planets have now moved into Leo, where we're feeling much more personally activated. So again, if you've been feeling kind of in the doldrums a little bit during the eclipses and whatnot, this could be quite invigorating. Mercury is still being Gemini on a personal level, right? I could see, again, where relationships and all the compromise and all that stuff is not going to feel as good. So again, you want to see these are all shifts. These are all moments. So in your relationships, just know you can expect that, okay, all of that togetherness we felt a couple of weeks ago, we're going to be feeling much more like individualized. So we need to we need to stay connected to our individuality. We need to make sure we have our own sense of purpose and alignment intact. Again, that we're not, looking to the other person to be our savior or whatever it is that makes that makes relationships bad in that regard, that kind of Jupiter derangement of a relationship. You're God. Oh, you're my savior. You're the devil. Oh, our relationship is the thing, the meaning of my life. That's also how Jupiter can just blow it. So again, you see all of these oppositions. We're getting these oppositions. Cancer, Capricorn opposition, solitude, stillness, boundaries, Cancer, dissolving boundaries, emotions. Leo, the power, the king, the vision, and Aquarius, how I want the vision to impact my world and the world and things that are bigger than myself, sense of service and purpose. So these things sort of colliding, and really in contrast by the middle of the month, for the second half of the month, because you see now all these oppositions are set up. I look at this and I'm like, okay, and these are retrograde planets, of course, because planets are retrograde when they're opposite the sun. So both Saturn and Jupiter, look at all of this. You see it's just set up there now to the end of the month. The moon keeps going. Mercury's pretty much set up there. So by the middle of July, we have Mercury set up in Gemini. We have Sun, Mars, Mercury, Sun in Cancer, Mars and Venus in Aquarius, and in these oppositions are kind of set up. Now this is the 25th. So by the 25th now, 25th, not 29th. By the 25th, Mercury now joins in Cancer. Yeah, I was hoping, 25th, not 29th, right? So we see that just continuing to the end of the month, that sort of setup of oppositions and whatnot. So this is really the main themes that we're going to be looking at in July. And so again, we see these big shifts happening every month as the planets kind of move, especially, the sun will move into a new sign in the middle of the month, of the calendar month, and whatnot. So, so we have this, these are the main themes that I wanted to cover. And again, I just wanted to put this, to share this. Second here. Why does this thing why is it being this? So again, I wanted to give this, interface has changed a little bit. So you can, again, if you want to get this class on, if you haven't registered for this, again, it's free. It's really important to know, because what I just talked about, especially with these planets, these retrogrades in Cancer and Aquarius are really important. And when I'm talking about this being for all 12 signs, what I'm doing is analyzing mainly how this Jupiter retrograde in Aquarius, Saturn retrograde in Capricorn is influencing you until like October. So again, we can, July, okay, a couple weeks, my relationships are going to be this, blah, blah, blah. But the long-term transit that's really influencing things revolve around the Jupiter in Aquarius, Saturn in Capricorn, that retrograde cycle, how that's really hitting your chart. You should know this. If you don't, you're just missing it. You're missing the most important information for the next several months. Because all this other stuff, again, you can see the main things I'm stressing here, even in this forecast, is how these other transits are even interacting with that. And this month in July, they're really interacting with it. All these oppositions now, it makes it even more important. Because again, it's not just that, if you're Gemini, Jupiter is going retrograde in your 9th house, and it's the 7th and 10th house ruler, and Saturn is going retrograde in your 8th house, and the 8th and 9th house ruler. But now it's going to get this opposition from planets that are pulling on that. So Saturn is going retrograde in the 8th house, if you're Gemini. But then now you're going to have all these planets going to the second house, pulling you out of that thing, pulling you out of the 8th house into the second house and saying, okay, all these insecurities and transformation I'm going through, okay, and I want to just kind of escape from all of the day-to-day routines. But now all these planets are pulling me into that again. So it's pulling in this opposition. Jupiter retrograde in the 9th. Okay, all these planets are now going through the 3rd. So as much as I want to just connect with teachings, it's pulling me down into the world of details and specificity. So again, if you don't know this stuff, then you're really not going to get as much out of it as you should. And so this is a lot of what is going on for the next month. So you should really get that if you haven't, because it puts all of these other things into much greater context. And so I'll just leave it at that. And, like and share, get notified, subscribe, and all that stuff to the channel. And you